Call the roll, please.
Senator Crago,
Oh, excused.
Senator Ide,
Here.
Senator McEwen,
Here.
Senator Pearson,
Here.
Chairman French.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. First up this morning is we'll discuss House Joint Resolution number 2, foreign adversaries prohibited property ownership. This was sponsored by the Joint Ag, State and Public Lands and Water Resources Interim Committee. Excuse me. I'll just read through it, I guess, real quick. It's a joint resolution prohibiting foreign adversaries and specified foreign entities from owning property in Wyoming. Be it resolved by the legislature of the state of Wyoming, 2/3 of all the members of the two houses voting separately, concurring therein. Section 1, the following proposal to amend Wyoming Constitution, Article 1, Section 29 is proposed for its submission to the electors of the state of Wyoming at the next general election for approval or rejection to become valid as part of the Constitution, if ratified by a majority of the electors at the election. Article 1, Section 29, rights of aliens. That's on page 2, line 2. A, except as provided in subsection B of this section, no distinction shall ever be made by law between resident aliens and citizens as to the possession, taxation, enjoyment, and descent of property. Line 7, foreign adversaries of the United States that pose a threat to national security of the United States or the security and safety of the persons of the United States shall not be entitled to possession, enjoyment, or descent of real property. Excuse me, including any interest in real property or real estate in any surface, subsurface, airspace, or mineral interest in this state. And on page 3, at the top, line 1, section 2, that the Secretary of State shall endorse the following statement on the proposed amendment. The adoption of this amendment would specify that foreign adversaries of the United States that pose a threat to national security of the United States or the security and safety of persons of the United States shall not be entitled to possession, enjoyment, or descent of real property, including any interest in real property or real estate, any surface, subsurface, airspace, or mineral interest in the state. That's the resolution. I know we talked about this, I believe, in Buffalo last June, I believe. So trying to wrap my head around, trying to remember the conversation back then. That's been a long time ago. Committee, any comments on it or any recollection of the conversation in June in Buffalo?
I think it's pretty straightforward. It's,
I wasn't there either.
yeah, it's just me, you and me.
It's not an excuse. Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. Anybody in the room like to comment on this? State your name for the record, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jody Levin. I'm here on behalf of the Trona Industry and the Wyoming Mining Association. Because we have seen so many bills addressing foreign ownership the last 2 years, the Trona Industry and WMA actually asked for that to be an interim topic. The problem that we've seen in the past is overly broad definitions were capturing some of your extractive industries in the state. And so those bills had been an enormous concern for us. So we worked certainly with the Ag Committee. We've worked with the Corporations Committee and the Secretary of State. And we worked with the Joint Appropriations Committee because they're the ones who were actually assigned the interim topic. So we had 5 bills moving this session. I think now we're down to 4. All of those now focus in on a tighter definition of foreign adversary that ties to the federal definition under 15 CFR 791.4 as the countries that are foreign adversaries to the United States. Or you'll be seeing, we believe, a bill coming from the House side that also includes entities that are state sponsors of terrorism. So those definitions do not capture your extractive industries that are currently operating in Wyoming. None of those companies are from countries on those lists. So we greatly appreciate the work of this committee and the other committees to really pull these issues back and give us an opportunity to work with you to address our concerns and not have to oppose these bills. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So at this moment, you want further study on it, or are you in support of this current resolution?
Mr. Chairman, the Trona Industry and the Wyoming Mining Association are comfortable with the bills that are moving as defined. If those definitions open back up, then we're going to have the same kind of concern that we've had the past few years. But as long as we're keeping to those definitions of foreign adversary, then we're comfortable.
And that's the federal definitions of a foreign adversary, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, stand by. Next, state your name and,
Thank you, Mr.
For the
Chairman,
record.
members of the, excuse me.
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Karen Clark. I represent the Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, and we are here today standing in support of this joint resolution. Our members are very supportive of this topic and we appreciate all of the work that's been done in the interim to make this a bill that would go forward to protect or to prohibit foreign adversary ownership of lands here in Wyoming. We feel this is a very important national security issue, so again, we stand in support of this joint resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, stick around. Thanks for your testimony. Anybody else like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie from Sublette County. Good morning. -3, I think it is out there.
Pardon?
-3, I think it is outside. Anyway,
Heat wave.
I support the bill. Our Constitution has this word that trips us up sometime about how we handle aliens. And our Constitution simply didn't contemplate what we face as a nation today, those that would use our system against us. So given that, this is a good bill, should go forward. And we have to be careful we don't trip ourselves up by something that was written in 1890. Subject questions, thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else like to comment? Going once, going twice, nobody online, correct? Okay, public comment is closed. Committee, what's your preference here?
Move the bill, move the resolution.
The resolution has been moved by Senator Pearson,
Second.
seconded by Senator McEwen. Is there any amendments or anything to it? Question being called. I know Senator Craigo said he would be back and forth, so we'll just hold his vote until he gets here and he can, but go ahead and call the roll, please.
This is a roll call vote for House Joint Resolution number 2. Senator Craigo, we'll leave it open.
Yeah, he's excused. He'll do his vote when he gets in here. He's testifying in another committee.
Senator Ide,
Aye.
Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Senator Pearson,
Aye.
Chairman French.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 4 aye.
Thank you, Clayton. All right, next up is House Bill number 93. Protect Wyoming's Lands Act, sponsored by the Joint Ag, State Public Lands and Water Resource Interim Committee. Has everybody read it? I'll try to go over the highlights.
Do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is an act relating to corporations, partnerships, associations, and associations prohibiting natural asset companies from selling credits through national security exchanges as specified, providing definitions, specifying applicability, and providing for an effective date. Natural asset companies definition prohibition. As used in this section, natural asset company means a company that holds a conservation interest in land in Wyoming or has the rights to the ecological performance, including value from natural assets and the production of ecosystem services of a defined land area in Wyoming, and has the authority to manage each area for conservation, restoration, or sustainable management. And number two, the primary purpose with respect to such defined land area in Wyoming is to A, manage, maintain, restore, and grow the value of natural assets and the production of ecosystem services in the area, or B, carry out activities that do not cause any material adverse impact on the condition of the natural assets in the area and replenish the natural resources used in the area. Letter B, it should be unlawful for a natural asset company having a conservation interest in land or defined land area entirely within Wyoming to sell its credits through a natural securities exchange or a national securities exchange registered under 15 USC 78F. This subsection shall not prohibit a natural asset company from selling its credits from land it holds outside the state of Wyoming. This act shall apply to natural asset companies with conservation interests in land or defined land areas entirely within Wyoming on or after the effective date of this act. This act is effective immediately upon completion of all acts necessary for a bill to become law as provided by Article 4, Section 8 of the Wyoming Constitution.
All right, thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. Committee, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, good bill. Yeah, it's, they're trying to monetize conservation, make it part of multiple use and
Right.
just take it out of ag land or rangeland out of production.
Okay. Seeing none at the moment, any public comment? Yeah, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, I am Karen Clark, representing the Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, and we stand in support of House Bill 93, the Protect Wyoming Lands Act. Our Farm Bureau Federation policy and farmers and ranchers across the state of Wyoming believe that natural assets are private property, and we oppose the monetization of ecosystem services. And we've seen a big push for these natural asset companies to come in with third-party funding and try to control the land use. And we believe that, the landowners are the best stewards of the land. They know what is in the best interest of caring for their land and making sure the best conservation practices are there. So this act, we believe, is very important for us to protect that monetization that could come in from third parties. And we're seeing this attempt at the federal level as well with federal legislation to protect America's land. And so again, we stand in support of this legislation, and I would stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Karen? All right, stick around.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there further public comment on this one? We don't have anyone online, do we? Okay. Any further public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Committee, what's your choice here?
Move the bill. Oh,
Um, The bill's been moved by Senator Ide, seconded by Senator Pearson. Any amendments or anything to the bill? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, question being called. Clayton, if you would.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill 93. Senator Craigo,
He's excused. He'll, when he gets back in here, if he gets here before we adjourn,
we
he'll
will-
say yes or no. with
we will
his
leave it
vote.
open.
Yeah, please leave it open.
Senator Ide,
aye.
Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Senator Pearson,
Aye.
Chairman Friend.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 4 ayes.
All right, thank you. We're going to pause for a minute, everyone. This next one is House Bill 61. And the individual that would like to present it, speak about it, is in another committee, but did you text him? He's been texted, so take 5. Since Representative Banks gets here, we'll start up again.
I'm gonna go visit. Can I go visit? Is that legal?
Yeah. Oh, here, Senator Pearson. Oh. Okay, next up is House Bill number 61. Representative Dalton Banks will walk us through it. Dalton, if you would.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. So this is a real simple bill, House Bill 61. And what it does is address kind of a loophole situation that we have in a state lands office. So right now, a person who has a lease, but who is not in violation, and the language says not in violation, can renew their lease as the preferred lessee. But they found in some contested cases that because of the vagueness of that language, it can be contested on the assumption of, have they ever been in violation of that lease? And so what this does is alleviate that issue by bringing in the language that says there on page 2, simple change, and is not currently in violations of the provision of that lease. So if they had some violations, but they were able to clear them up and they stand now in compliance, then they have the preferred right to renew that lease on their state ground. Of course, the questions I got earlier, what do those violations entail? You know, subleasing without approval, grazing infractions, late payments, things like that. But if they rectify those and they're currently not in violation, then they have the preferred right to renew that lease on that piece of state land. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll sit for questions you, the committee, might have for me.
Thank you, Representative. So in the past, they may have had different violations, let's say. And they corrected whatever it was with a slip or whoever. This just says if there are currently no violations, they're good, they've been good. Is that for a period of time or just a simple fact that, hey, they're not in violation of anything, that they have the preferred right?
So, yeah, and in the system and the stuff with the Office of State Lands, they do kind of have that ability where you can correct your violations. If you, something got lost in the mail, your payment didn't arrive, whatever, technically that's a violation because you were late with your lease. But they have some rules in place that allow the correction of that. And so there was some gray area there of, well, technically they're in a violation, so should we cut them off and say they haven't had the preferred right? Or they're in the process now of getting it done. And because of our rules we have, they're not in a current violation. They were able to clear that up. They can still have that preferred right. If it's a guy who's been, leasing that for 40 years, it just kind of makes sense that he has the preferred right instead of, a little mistake that maybe was the postal service instead of his own, cuts him off from that. Just seems like it went a little bit harsh there, so we just wanted to make sure that they're the ones that have the preferred right. If, according to this, they're not in a current violation.
Okay, thank you. Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman French. Hi, Representative Banks. So my question is, because I'm not clear on what happens if, say, even if these leases are good, or they have no violations. Say a multimillionaire comes in and wants to lease that land and offers the state a higher price for that lease. Still, the person that has that current lease not in violation would have priority. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, so the preferred right to renew is, if you read on down there, they have the right to match that, I think is what the preferred right to renew kind of, and if the state lands office is here, they might be able to answer those questions better than I can with their process. But they, currently what that means, the preferred right to renew is meeting the highest bid. And that's current statute that's been in place for, I think, a long time.
Correct. So somebody comes in and somebody new buys a neighboring ranch or whatever, and that lease comes up and it would fit their operation and they want to bid for it. The current lessee has the right to lease it again. I think they're for 10-year period at a time, but they have to match that higher bid. Whatever the highest bid is, they have to match it. So let's get a little more from the state. If you have more questions, Senator, stick around, unless you have to go.
Nope.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. Ben Bump for State Lands. I think that the question here from Senator Pearson is important to note that when a conflicting bid is put in, there's a cap at 120% of the market rate. And so what this preference is for is to match any competing bids at that lease renewal time. That's what the preference is for. So we see this as simply, as Representative Banks said, closing that loophole, as opposed to has ever had any violations, is not currently in violation of any lease terms. So what we're looking for is in good standing to be qualified for that preference.
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to clarify that, so say the wealthy person came in, just to play off of Senator Pearson's comments, say they came in and they offered double what the existing lease is, and the preference lessee, would they automatically have to match it up to 120% in that situation? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ide, yes, if the competing bid came in and they put a maximum bid in, which is at that cap of 120% of market rate, then the current lessee has the preferred right to match that bid at that 120%, equal it, and renew their lease.
What if it's way up there? Let's say it's, the lease is whatever, $2 an AUM or whatever. And the competing person that comes in and wants it says, I'll pay, just to try to get a hold of it, $8 an AUM. This 120% is the maximum level that the current leaseholder has to match, right?
Mr. Chairman, 120% is the maximum that potential incoming lessee can bid.
Okay, so they
conflicting
can't do a
applicant, right.
really super high, okay, I got you. All right. Senator McEwen.
So as I understand this, let's say we have a government lease, it's $100. And somebody wants to come lease it, the most they could bid on it's 120.
Mr. Chairman, Senator McEwen, yes, $100 is the market rate, then it would be 120.
And if they offered 140, it wouldn't count.
We would cap it at 120.
Thank you.
Further questions? Do you have any other comments on it? How that leasing, and as long as they don't, they're in good standing, maybe they had a violation 6 months ago, or it's been corrected, I mean, is there, what if they're in the process of, because I think most of these leases are for a 10-year time frame. If they're in violation, but it's being corrected at the time of renewal, what happens then? Then the renewal's January 1st, let's say, and they're working with your office to correct something that your office says, well, you're in violation of. Is there any grace period, anything like that for them to get into compliance?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, there is, our goal is to, as soon as some sort of a violation is known, to work with that lessee to get them in compliance as quickly as possible. And so, as an example, the one that I believe has come up most recently has been with subleasing. So perhaps a lessee is renewing their lease, and upon review, found out that they needed a sublease and they don't currently have one. So our agency lets them know, hey, we need to get a sublease as quickly as possible. And so in that situation, and now because of some recent policy changes, that process doesn't take a long time anymore. The director can approve those right away. And so if they've submitted paperwork and we're working with them, we would want to consider them in good standing so that we can renew that lease.
Even though working through something to be classed as in good standing.
I think that would, Mr. Chairman, I think that would be sort of on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
But I think that our goal would always be to, as much as possible, work with the lessee to get them in compliance as quickly as possible.
Do you, those lessees, because those leases are pretty important, you know, especially, well, whoever gets them, it's important to them, but if it's been a family ranch for 50 years with leases, and if you see a violation, do you immediately contact them and say, hey, your lease is coming up, you need to correct this as soon as possible? I mean, because if you're in any kind of violation when your lease is up, somebody potentially can bid against you, and, or, you know.
Mr. Chairman, yes, as much as possible, as soon as we're made aware or find something out, we'll contact the lessee immediately to try and bring them into compliance.
Okay. Senator Hyde.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question for either one of you. This is specifically towards rental payment, essentially. Is there any, is there any outside violations that could be affected on this outside of just a rental payment with the state land office? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, if I understand the question correctly, it's what sort of violations could exist outside of rental payments, things like subleasing, potentially overgrazing. There's a whole host of terms and conditions that are on the grazing lease, and so a violation of any of those. It is worth noting that these are extremely rare. There's only, on average, 8 to 10 conflicting applications per year out of 4,000 leases, and the amount of times that there are lessees that are not fully in compliance is pretty rare.
Further questions? Senator Pearson.
Thank you. I have just kind of an unrelated question because I'm hearing different things as far as state land leases, and now people are wanting to fence off state lands that maybe are in the checkerboard. Is that accurate or it's not accurate?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pearson, me personally, I have not heard of a big effort to fence off state lands in the checkerboard.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other comments, Dalton? Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. Anyone want to comment? Please come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Again, Karen Clark with the Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. We are in support of this legislation. We think it's definitely does close a loophole, as Representative Banks referred to in presenting the bill. We believe very strongly in the preferential right for lessees of state land and believe that long-term stability is very beneficial for the state lands. And so the lessees having that long-term stability and the preferential right and ability to come in and meet whatever their bid may be there is important. And we'd highlight that this is current, they're not in violation, not in that violation. And so it enables, as it's been previously referenced, that we would support that language there. So again, in support of this legislation, and we would stand for any questions.
Any questions, Karen? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further public comment? Nobody's online, correct? Further comment? All right, public comment is closed. Anyway, committee, what's your choice here?
I'll move the bill.
Bill's been moved by Senator McEwen, seconded by Senator Pearson. Any amendments or anything? Seeing none. Clayton, if you'd call the question, please.
This is a roll call vote for House Bill number 61. Senator Craigo?
He's excused. He may make it back in, hopefully, to cast his vote on these three things we've discussed.
You want me to leave the vote open?
Yes, please.
Senator Ide?
Aye.
Senator McEwen?
Aye.
Senator Pearson?
Aye.
Chairman French?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, that is 4 ayes.
All right, thank you, Clayton. Anything more to come before the committee? Got off easy today. Ag committee's adjourned. Yeah, thanks, Dalton.
That was an easy day.